So I kind of accepted that I was an alcoholic, and I kind of accepted at that point that I was a hopeless and just broken person. I couldn't keep a healthy relationship. My first marriage ended over divorce because of drugs and alcohol. And at the time I was engaged, and that was getting ready to end because of the alcohol abuse. And I was actually, my wife now, who was my fiance at the time, I'll tell you, I was a fun drunk, but I was killing myself. And I would bluntly tell you the truth. And there was no filter when I drank. So nobody really liked me. I thought people liked me.
Yeah.
But, as an alcoholic, we lie to ourselves about so many things like I can't dance. That's not on my acting resume. When I drank, I was an amazing dancer. I was awesome. I mean, I freaking move. I got sober when I found out I'm not really a good dancer.
Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we're a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or a loved one, or maybe you're actively in recovery a short time, or maybe it's many, many years, you're going to find all kinds of information, topics on addiction recovery, and really living a happy, successful, and sober life here at Recovery Today. My name is Rob Hanley. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today, and as usual, never without any exception, we've got a really, really cool guest. I'm really excited to talk with this guy here today. He's got an amazing, amazing story. And we had a brief phone conversation, and just to talk to this guy is really just almost immediately fall in love. You're gonna really like him a lot. He's a 42-year-old oil worker and actor. I know that sounds really kind of odd, but he's an active oil field worker and he's an actor. He resides in the bayous of South Louisiana. He's married to his wife, has 2 children. He's got 3 stepchildren. He's been sober since December the 15th of 2014. And one of the things that's really cool about him, he's an active member of something called the Bearded Villains and the Bearded Villains of the Louisiana chapter. I'd like you to welcome Hick Cheramie. I hope I pronounced your last name right, by the way, Hick.
Yeah, I mean, you did fine. You did way better than people have done in the past. We pronounce it Cheramie, which means like dear friend in French.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Hick Cheramie.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm really humbled and honored to be in your presence and to be able to discuss these topics with you. You kind of cut out a little bit at the end there. So, yeah, man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hopefully the recording is okay on that. And as we said, kind of dealing with Wi-Fi issues. I know that you're at the hotel there, and appreciate you kind of fitting us into your schedule, because as we were just talking a second ago, unlike pretty much everybody in the United States, as we're kind of doing this, and hopefully we're emerging out of the coronavirus shutdown, you have been more busy than ever in your work and haven't taken off at all, which is kind of odd to have somebody say, I just needed to get some time off and to get away. Love the background where you are there. You're downtown New Orleans. Is that right?
Yes.
Little weekend getaway.
Yeah. Try to break the monotony of the constant workflow, and we really haven't had a time to stop and really pay attention to all of this that is going on, because the business I'm in, it's 24/7 and it's nonstop. And even with oil prices dropping low, the industry is hurting, and there is a lot of people who lost their jobs. And I was fortunate enough to continue to work, so we have been nonstop, and because production still is going on and things are still going on.
I would have never anticipated to comment on this, but I follow the economy as close as I can. I've watched things like gold and silver, the prices. I watch the stock market, and it's funny actually. Even though I don't participate in the stock market myself or investments, it's weird how the dopamine in my brain kind of exceeds when you have this sense of well-being that's going on, that the economy is kicking ass, Unemployment's the lowest that it's ever been in history, and the stock market's at the all-time high. I mean, high. And now we're in this different world where the stock market is dramatically corrected. I think it's gone up a little bit, but can you imagine oil prices at negative? I even pitched oil a couple of years ago at a little side gig. Somebody told me I could make some great money talking to people about investing in oil. So I know a few things about the oil business. Usually about 50, 60, 70, 80, it's been over $100 a barrel, and it goes all the way to minus $37, like negative $37 a barrel. You actually get paid to take oil, man.
Yeah, it's my family has been in the oil field since the 40s, and
Wow.
they have owned a part of my family actually, and they still do. They started back in the 40s, own supply boats that actually go out to these assets in the Gulf of Mexico. And in my lifetime, and in my father, who was born in 1950, we seen a really bad fall in like 1986, and then we had another turn in like 2014, but nothing compared to this. In my lifetime, and I think in my father's, we have never seen oil reach what it reached in these past couple months, which is crazy to me. And as much as
what's it at right now? I don't even know what is it today. I don't even know.
I don't know. I quit checking.
Better not to even look, right?
The only thing I look at is to make sure I have that check deposit.
That's right. Yeah.
Every week so I can eat. Because my other living, the acting thing, there's no productions going on. So I've been full time, oil field, and that's my main gig because of the benefits. And I have children and to take care of, and a household with my wife. So I just make sure that check is deposited, and I kind of quit looking at oil prices. Kind of deter you and unmotivate you at work. So I just stay the course and keep doing my job and hope those checks are deposited.
I think that's the only way really to survive kind of mentally. And you and I were texting back and forth yesterday, and I was sharing a little bit of my thoughts on this, on the virus and the lockdown. And I don't want to do full conversation about that, but I like to call out the elephant in the room, so to speak. And we shared a lot of the same kind of opinion is that, one of the things I said is I'm just over this shit, man. Like I vacillate back and forth between like, that's a good basically what I say. I'm just over this whole thing. It's interesting how external things influence us mentally, and you got to just go, no, let's just stay focused on what it is that we're doing right now.
Yeah, you completely got to stay the course. I find what helps me is actually we kind of touched on this, you and I, yesterday, is the constant communication with other human beings. But what I had told you, and to piggyback a little bit on what I had told you on that, is that, we can communicate in this day and age, obviously, like you and I are doing now, constantly with cell phones and computers and whatnot. But I think the lesson I've learned in this is that the importance and my need for being physically there with the human soul as far as conversation and actually seeing emotion. And I'm a very emotional, passionate person.
Yeah.
Acting is an emotional, passionate thing. And I've always been like that, even before sobriety, and now in recovery, a very emotional person. And that's my lesson I've learned, and I've learned to just kind of like stay the course and not buy into all the bullshit, because we are being fed so much information at this time from every angle, politically, news media, and it's a lot, And my big concern, and I had seen you guys in Recovery Magazine posted the other day about, I did maybe an article or something on how what are people doing right now to deal, with this. And, our only option is this constant, communication and reaching out and checking and being checked on and being, but I truly believe most of the things, the information that we're getting is shit. Man. And it is what it is. My concern out of all of this, and to jump back onto what you guys had touched on with the magazine, was, people with mental illness, people in recovery, people who are not getting spiritually fed. So that's my big concern out of this, because and I feel like we need to get out of this, because it will affect eventually people. I mean, obviously it's affecting you, it's affecting me. And you seem like a strong character. I'm a very strong-willed character, but some people don't have the support that you and I have, and some people don't have that, so my big concern out of this mess, which I pretty much called it, this is a mess, is that people who don't have the resources or that human contact. And I think society,
man, the human contact is imperative, man. Like getting together, like, to make it a little bit woo-woo for a second, like what is the expression? There really is no physical matter. Everything is energy, at the microlist, it's all energy. And so I heard a long time ago where we are energy fields living inside an energy field, and we need to kind of get together. It is cool we could do this, but like, there's nothing like actually shaking somebody's hand, giving somebody a hug, like being in their presence. We're totally I think the real word is actually like we're starved, we're thirsty for.
Yeah, because we're used to that, and this is my opinion, we're used to that projection of physical energy from a person and absorbing it. And like you and I can only get so deep here. But if we were in person, I'm sure the way we would receive and project things towards each other would be at a deeper level and be at more of a level of actually feeling, and I mean, that's what I learned out of this. And I'm still learning through this mess, as I call it, that, the importance of the human soul and it being physically present in front of you as a human being,
My wife and I were on a walk the other day, and this is kind of going to be, at least I think, my final punctuation on this whole topic, because we're going on a walk, and the first thing that she starts talking about is the freaking coronavirus and the lockdown, and she's all dejected because I live in Washington State, and she's like, we're never going to get out of phase one, man. Like, we're like, she's a school teacher. She's like, they're already planning on like online learning for the fall, which is mind-blowing to me. We were in May, and I just said, honestly, I don't want to talk about the fucking virus right now, man. I'm so over talking about this. And then that lasted about 10 minutes while we were on our walk. And then, of course, it came up again. So I do want to talk about you, though, because you, first of all, you're a really interesting looking guy, number one. I loved, as I told you when we talked, man, like I love like this bayou kind of accent. It's funny because everybody wherever they live, they think they don't have an accent, so I definitely think I don't have one, but I love the look, and I love your story. And by the way, quick shout out before I forget, I was going to mention this a minute ago. Our mutual friend Donna Spear was the one. She texted me, she's like, you have to meet this guy, you have to talk to this guy. He's going to be huge. He's going to be this, that, and the other. So I was like, okay, cool. I love Donna. So I was like, great. I get on the phone with you. And we just started connecting. So I guess my usual first question, I got a little longer here, is like, let's start out, man. Like, tell us who you are a little bit and your story. I mean, I read the bio, but that doesn't really do anything. And then it was just so unique, the kind of the transition into adding the actor part into, who you are today. So, take it away.
Definitely shout out to Donna. She's absolutely amazing. And, like many people before I got sober and after I got sober and I'm in recovery, is she's one of those people that sees something in me that I don't see in myself, which I run into often. And I'm grateful for those people, because if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't really know what my potential was. Yeah. And I found out I had a lot of potential, but I'm a 42-year-old guy, and I'm married, and as you said, I'm an oil field worker and actor, and I'm a father and stepfather, and at 42 I'm a step grandfather, and I grew up in a place called Bayou Lafourche, and Bayou Lafourche is one of the main deltas from the Mississippi that go out into the Gulf of Mexico. So we basically made of two roads, LA1 and 308, and in the middle runs this bayou. You know, and to get to the other side, you got to cross the bridge, and directions down there are pretty easy. You know, if a tourist comes down there, it's like, you know, well, where's this? It's down the bayou. Where's that? It's up the bayou. And I mean, that's it, because that's the all there is to go. Other than that, you're going straight into the Gulf of Mexico. But I grew up, you know, a Cajun boy on that bayou, and with, you know, in the beginning, I remember a lot of love, but I was really kind of maybe too young to understand what love was. My grandmother had a different kind of love, and she was a very dominant woman who was a huge part of my life, and her love was material things, giving you material things. But I won't go, you know, too much into, man, I listened to Donna's story, which the interview I did, and her and I have a lot of things in common with our sobriety and the way we talk about our sobriety. But, you know, I'll start off with this. Where I come from is a lot of, you know, rough Cajun boys and hunting and fishing, and there was always a part of me that wasn't that. There was this creative side of me. So I've always felt different from my peers. And I really didn't know what it was until I got sober at like I think 36 and ventured out and found out what it was. But to get a little history, both my parents and grandparents on each side all have had substance abuse issues. It's a long lineage and a lot of ancestral trauma, and which I think, you know, I'm not special. But this is all over, and everybody ends up dealing with some form or the other. But I'll start off with not my first drink, but I'll start off the first time that I've ever, and it's crazy that I felt that ease and comfort. I was actually kindergarten or first grade, and I had some kind of procedure with my, I think it was my throat and ears. I had problems with throat and ears when I was a young child. And the doctor prescribed me liquid codeine. Now, I didn't know what addiction was. I didn't know what codeine was. I mean, obviously, I'm a little kid. I just knew it was medicine I had to take. And my mother, who lost her battle with addiction in 2012, ended up telling me the story. And my father backed it up, and he's been sober since '86. When I finished that bottle of codeine, I'd cry and beg for more. And she actually went to the doctor and she got me some. And I think I had went through like 3 bottles as a young child. And for whatever reason, and I could still remember begging her for that medicine and her telling me, like, you can't have no more medicine, and her begging me for the medicine. And I really never paid attention to that until I actually went through the process of getting into recovery and sobriety. You know, it's still crazy to me that at that age, for some reason, that I had this desire to feel what codeine made me feel like. But, you know, and I to go through the war stories in quick parts, you know, I lived a life like teenagers live in a country town, you know, where you drink. I think my first drink I was like in the 5th grade. It was some jungle juice at a Mardi Gras parade. And
Sure.
That was completely normal to parents. Not my father. He didn't know about it. He would have totally kicked my ass. But parents that we knew on the Mardi Gras floats were like just handing us cups of jungle juice. And you know, at junior high, I got into pot and then, you know, ecstasy and stuff through high school and this and that. And I was you know, in the 4th grade was a big change for me. My mom left us with my father, and she took off. And my father and my grandmother raised us. So, and they were very protective of us. But later on, you know, getting into college and stuff, and which didn't work out because I just liked to party. Fast forward through many years of actually, I lived in Washington State for a little while. Was addicted to heroin there. Many years in many rehabs or attempts at rehabs and detoxes. In December of 2014, after a 5-year straight run with alcohol, in 2011, it was a big prescription pain medication person, or actually prescription anything pill person. And I quit cold turkey after years of abuse, and it made me really sick. I mean, I was dope sick. And I was living with my mom at the time, and we were kind of working the pain management system. And I went down to my dad's house, and I was dope sick for many, 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 many days. And even that day I decided to do what I'm about to tell you, I still wasn't over the dope sickness, because I mean, obviously I didn't know how to live life on life's terms without that medication. And I walked to a grocery store that I grew up my whole life at, and I bought a 12-pack of beer. And that day, for 5 years on, at the end of my professional drinking career, I think it was like a gallon of vodka a day. And it was
a gallon a day, is what you said? A gallon of vodka a day?
Close to a gallon a day. And I went to work. And the crazy part is I didn't drink at work. So from like 5 a.m. till it was DTs all day long until like 3:30 in the afternoon. And then when the minute I walk out that place, it was on, you know, and it was nonstop. And at that time in my life, I was having a lot of health problems due to my alcoholism. I had my pancreas was failing. My liver was shot.
That's a lot of alcohol to process, man. A gallon a day.
It is. And that at the end, I think I want to see that last 6 months. You know, it was close to a gallon. In fact, 5 years later, we're still finding bottles on the property, which is crazy. I was literally killing myself, and DUIs, and I mean, nothing was going to make me stop drinking. I kind of had admitted what I was, because it's where I kind of came from, right? Especially my culture. My culture is very, they like to have a good time.
Yeah.
We celebrate for anything. A lot of my peers started drinking, and my peers' parents started drinking at a very young age. So I kind of accepted that I was an alcoholic, and I kind of accepted at that point that I was a hopeless and just broken person. I couldn't keep a healthy relationship. My first marriage ended over divorce because of drugs and alcohol. And at the time I was engaged, and that was getting ready to end because of the alcohol abuse. And I was actually, you know, my wife now, who was my fiance at the time, I'll tell you, I was a fun drunk, but I was killing myself. And I would bluntly tell you the truth. And there was no filter when I drank. So nobody really liked me. I thought people liked me.
Yeah.
But, you know, as an alcoholic, we lie to ourselves about so many things, like I can't dance. That's not on my acting resume. When I drank, I was an amazing dancer. I was awesome. I mean, I freaking moved. I got sober and I found out I'm not really a good dancer. And I got sober and I found out there's a lot of things that I really wasn't great at. I wasn't a great friend. I wasn't a great father. I wasn't a great employee. I was just a shitty person. I was a very selfish person. And I definitely was not accountable for anything I did. It was everybody else's fault, right?
Yeah.
And in December of 2014, after years of abuse and years of being a liar, a thief, and not only of material things, but of people's joy and their sleep and their trust that they put in me, I was sitting one morning, on a Monday morning, I had called in to work sick. And I was sitting down at 8 o'clock in the morning in my garage drinking vodka. And I've spent nights on park benches as a heroin addict. I've eaten out of dumpsters, you know, and everybody has those stories, right? I mean, that's who we are after recovery. That's what we are. That's the things we've done. But in that moment, I had never been so lonely before in my entire life. Not when I was homeless. Not when I was shooting dope in my arm. I had a house. I had a job. I had a fiance who I thought our relationship was healthy, but obviously it wasn't because she was living alcoholic. I thought my kids, you know, I had a relationship with my kids, which wasn't healthy at the time because I was an alcoholic. And I never felt so lonely before in my life, man. I sat there and I cried. and I still can't tell you to this day what made me start crying. But I cried, and I remember going inside, and it was right before Christmas, and I had all my kids' gifts like wrapped up in this foyer that we have in our house, that, in our hallway. And I think for the first time in my life, I sat there and said to myself, like, I can't do this alone, and I don't want to live like this anymore. People told me what I was, but if you were ever in the shoes of being an addict or an alcoholic, we know exactly what we are. Mm-hmm. We'll be in denial openly, but deep down inside, we know exactly what we are. We see it every day in the mirror when we can actually look at ourselves in the mirror, because that was something I can rarely do. But for the first time, I sat there and I said, I can't do this alone, and I need help. And, even then after, I had this moment, and I still don't know today it is, that I had complete surrender right there, where I just got on my knees and I cried and I looked up to the sky, and my relationship at that point with any religion or spirituality or God was a bargaining one. It always has been a bargaining one.
Do this, I'll do this.
Right. Right. It was never like, hey, God, what can I do for you? Right. It was always like, do this, I'm going to do this, or do this, I'm going to do this, or I'll never do this again, or I'll never do that again. And, even after I had this like spiritual experience or this moment right then and there, and it wasn't the burning bush that you hear about. It wasn't the lightning bolt. It was just this feeling in my chest that is a phenomenon that I still can't explain to this day.
Yeah.
But even in that moment, I started to trick myself into believing that I can't do this right now, because look at all my kids' presents. Christmas is coming. I can't go get help out.
Maybe in a week or two, or
right,
New Year's.
Right.
New Year's is a good time.
Yeah, right, because New Year's Eve, like I said, yeah, let's go to rehab. You know what I'm saying? So there's never no right time. It's the will to want it more than you want anything in life. And it's, I hate this, I don't hate it, but it's said so often, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Man, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Moment did you have I figured when you said at first, you're like, I don't know, I'm in the garage. I don't know what came over me. I kind of just intuitively, I knew it was going to be some kind of spiritual experience. And whatever religion is, or whatever your higher power, but I just figured it just sounded like it was going to be there. I guess my question is a little bit like, did you have a moment of hope? I mean, not necessarily like there was an audible voice or a voice in your head that said, you can be more, or you can do more, but was there some kind of, what was that moment of, I don't call it a moment of clarity, because, obviously you're still heavily using, but like, did you see things differently? Like, hey, you realize that this could be a different path, or you're just, what happened then, if you remember?
So when I did get on my knees and cry, and I wasn't going to get too much into because a lot of people that are going to watch this have their ways and they have their, and I don't really like to get into, I find religion, when we speak of religion and sex, of the different sects of religion, is we tend to compare rather than relate. And I'm all about, my higher power is God.
Yeah.
That's who it is. It's the man upstairs, and I have a personal relationship with God, and I can go to any church, and I can respect any man's belief. If it's a positive, if it's a healthy belief, if it's something that is thriving for them, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I think our main purpose with that, and I'll get to the answer you're seeking from me or want to hear, is that, simply we're here to teach each other and be practitioners of love and compassion. It's just very simple, and I think that's our main goal as human beings, and that's what I like to believe. So, like, my religion is, I do good, I feel good. I do bad, I feel bad.
Yeah,
that's my religion, and that free will and that choice that I'm given to make the decision that if it feels bad, then I need to fix it.
So did you have some kind of a thing, like, was it like where you were able to look at yourself and go, look where you are, where you could be, or where you could go? Like, you'd been,
yes.
Like, what was different in that moment? I mean, like,
when my knees hit and I'm in their living room crying, and I know what I need, and I'm feeling hope.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to say, I got to get through Christmas. And I actually some people think I'm crazy, and that's fine, but I actually heard something.
We are crazy, but we are crazy. It's okay.
You're right. And what was projected to me in that moment was, you won't be here next Christmas.
That's pretty powerful, man. That's pretty powerful.
I kind of choke up every time I talk about it, because it was a phenomenal experience. And in that moment, excuse me, in that moment, I was shown that I am of worth and value. And that was something I never felt my whole life. So in that moment, whatever powers that be, and I don't like to question it too often, because it's been a beautiful ride since that moment, that I was shown of worth and value, and that gave me a lot of hope. And when I walked away from that moment, I picked up a telephone, and I said, like, the 3 most important words that I've said and I'll probably ever say in my life: I need help.
Yeah.
Because pride and ego had stopped me from doing that for so long.
Yeah.
It just did. It stopped me from being, I had it in the control. It was going to be fine. I called up my fiance and told her, which she knew. I think she was maybe not believing me so much, because I've had episodes where when something happened, something was different. Something was really different. This hope that I felt. And actually, a sense of strength and courage was with that hope. It was like the Holy Trinity, a trifecta of things that I've never had felt at one time. And from that point on, man, moves started being made, and by that next day, I called my work, and I'm so blessed to work for a family business, not my family, but a family, that I went to school with the guys who run it, and they seen something needed. They didn't see, that I didn't see myself, and they gave me that opportunity to go and get the help that I needed. And when I got back, had a job, and I'm very well valued at the company, and I'm so grateful for that family. They have a really good core of beliefs, and I'm really grateful for that company. But my fiance at the time, my wife now, started making calls, and my nanny, my mom's sister, who's very involved in my life, and acted kind of as a mom for me, helped out with a down payment to get me in a place. And I was luckily enough, I was insured to cover. And I went to an amazing place in Lafayette, Louisiana, where at the time Chris Herring actually was a partner in owning the Celtics ball player. Who, when I watched his 30 for 30, it was one of the things that had touched me so much.
We had him on our cover.
Yeah, I noticed. That's why I'm kind of bringing him up, because to end up at a treatment facility that he had a part of, I thought was part of maybe a plan, and I went to treatment, and I really wanted it. And, I wanted it more than anything in my life. When I was in treatment, I only spoke to my fiance. I completely, I didn't want to speak to my children. I didn't want to speak to my father. I didn't want to speak to my brother. I knew that I had to work on me. I knew that I had to get better and take every suggestion that was given to me in there. And I still keep in touch with my counselor in there today. So I stayed in there 35 days. And when I guess my biggest fear was getting out, right, into the real world. And I took the suggestions. And for me, and I know this question is going to come up. What do I use now to stay sober? And for me in the beginning, and still, is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's old school. They told me 90 meetings in 90 days, right? I went to 4 to 5 meetings a week for 3 years, because I'm an overachiever and I'm an addict, and I got to do more and more and more and more. I met some amazing people. I'm not so much involved in Alcoholics Anonymous now. As you can see, I'm breaking the 11th tradition right now. because I made a decision when I got sober that if I was to continue in life, that I was going to be an open book and that I wasn't going to hide who I was. So I made a decision early on in my sobriety to share my strength, hope, and experience with anyone. And it didn't have to be in a room. And it didn't have to be behind a closed door. And I'm grateful I did that. I'm very grateful I did that, because if I wouldn't have done that, the thousands of messages and correspondence that I've received and or people that they say I've helped them, which it was more of me staying out myself in the past 5 years, then I don't think I'd be a good, how can I say, an asset to the recovery community, at all.
Let me shift gears, only because, not because I don't want to continue on with this at all, but I already knew when we had talked the first time, and then just even texting back and forth, that that the two of us are pretty dangerous in terms of length of a conversation. But I want to jump into, if I can, part of one of the things I thought was so unique, besides all of this, which I had no idea, of course, just from one conversation. But tell us a little bit about how it's very unusual that you're an oil field worker and an actor. You see modeling and acting, you're an actor, but then you're also a bartender, you're an actor, you're a waiter, you're an actor, you're working in an office, but oil field worker, and you're not in LA, you're not. Tell everybody the story that you told me about how you became an actor, because you haven't been an actor very long at all.
No.
So give us that story, man. I don't want to cut out the other stuff at all because it's so good, but I want to get into wow, that's really.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
so it's weird to be called an actor, and it's weird for people to want to know about it, because at the time I think I just turned 40, and my wife and I were sitting on the sofa at the house, just on the couch, relaxing, and she kind of turns to me and she's like, "Is there anything you ever wanted to do that drugs and alcohol may have stopped you from doing?" And I was like, "Well, I always kind of wanted to be an actor," and without hesitation, man, I think and my wife's 14 years older than me, so she's more seasoned in life than I am. I think anybody else's wife would have been like crazy.
Yeah, you're 40,
awesome, babe. Awesome, babe, but let's stick to the real world, right?
Yeah.
And without hesitation, she's like, "Go for it." And I was just like, "Yeah." And I kind of just pushed it off to the side a little bit. But I had accomplished so much by then that I was like, you know what? Like, I can do whatever I want. Like, I can do whatever I like. I mean, obviously, I can't go be a billionaire in like a year, but if I work as hard as I did on my recovery on acting, then maybe I can do something, right? So a couple weeks went by, and this makeup woman that I know that works in movies is like, "Hey, we need a homeless guy for a background character." She's like, "I can see independent film," and I'm like, "Well, shit."
You had been homeless, right? You had been homeless.
That's method acting. I've been homeless. So I'm like, maybe I could do this. And I really didn't know anything about acting at this point. I didn't know what method acting was or anything like that. And I actually went and I did it. And while we were there, the guy who was I guess you'd say director of photography, but it was independent, so it was small. He was shooting everything. And he says, "Man, you really look good on camera," which I found creepy for this older dude telling me. And he's like, "No, dude, like, you mind if I get some shots from you? And here's the site." He's like, "If you send in this stuff," he's like, "you can go do background work." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." I'm like, well, I was like, maybe this is a good opportunity. So I go and I fill out the thing with this casting agency, and I start getting emails, and I ignore them for like 3 months. Because, as we grow, we have our, we still have these fears, and I just had this fear about it. And I guess finally one day I was driving home from, actually the beginning of that week, I was driving home, and they'd send me an email, and I just kept putting them in the trash bin, and like not trying to book nothing or anything. And it just kept coming. Request availability for this, and trash. and I was driving home Halloween day from work, and my phone rang. So I pulled over on the side of the road, and I took the call, and I seen it was a New Orleans number, and I thought it might have been some of the oil field. So I'm like, my nickname's Skip. So I'm like, hello, this is Skip with, and I say my company's name, and they're like, hey, Mr. Is this Hick Cheramie? And I'm like, yeah. So I got scared right there, and I'll tell you why. Because only two people actually,
police or something.
the police and the government only know me by Hick Cheramie. So I was like, so I hesitated a little bit, and she's like, this is so-and-so from so-and-so casting, and we want to book you for, it was like a background role on an NBC show, and I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? I had the next day off, went do the fitting, I went do it. I really enjoyed it. I met a lot of cool people, some people who have moved on into actual acting, and I'm friends with them today. And it was weird, man, because when I finished it, I'm like, this will never happen again. Like, this was, I played a prisoner, you know, obviously, but I was like, hey, I'm moving up, homeless, prisoner.
Right, man.
I was like, what's going to happen? And I'm like, this is it for me. Like, it's over with. And the calls kept coming, and they kept coming. And it was, you know, just from background work to featured work. And, you know, because they love the look, they love the look, they love the look. And then it went to, you know, I did a big movie last year. It's coming out in August. Brilliant directors. And I spent 14 days filming it as a featured recurring role in the movie. And during that time, I met, I won't say who, but I was referred to go and take acting classes. They were like, look, you'll never get nowhere if you don't study them or hone the craft of acting. And I don't think I'll ever hone the craft of acting, but I can keep studying and trying it. And I went with a really great acting coach who's here in New Orleans. He's phenomenal. And I started out with him, and I did an audition, and I got the part, and I got it's a movie coming out. I got a part as like a major supporting role. The second movie, I play a guy in a wheelchair, which is crazy because I never ended up in a wheelchair. But there was 2 different movies I did that the character's in a wheelchair, and I end up walking in one. But and then after that, it was you know, I think I shared some information with you. I don't know if I could say people's names on this, but I shared some information with you. So the big movie I did is Antebellum, and it's by 2 genius, brilliant
Antebellum.
I love to watch them work, and that movie, working on that movie, changed my life as an actor because it led me into speaking roles in, you know, down the road. And I was lucky enough to get casted in Andrew Lawrence's movie coming out, Money Plane, and where I play a pretty mean character. And I think I should, you know, he actually, it was kind of cool, man. He messaged me and gave me really awesome feedback about my scene, which I smoked a cigarette in, and I hadn't smoked in 5 years, and it tasted like shit. But yeah, you know, so you hear all this awesome feedback. I did a movie with Tom Proctor, who's a brilliant actor, and all in the same week, he actually messaged me. He was like, man, you were like working with Tom Hardy, and so you hear all this shit.
Wow.
And I'm just a recovering alcoholic junkie, right? Oil field worker. And so the things.
And how many years is this though? This isn't over like many years. This is like.
No, man. My first background role was in November of 2018.
2 years ago, a couple of years, 2.5 some odd years, yeah.
Right. So last year was crazy. I did multiple movies. I got to work with someone who I really look up to. I got to actually be in a scene with Bryan Cranston and another actor.
Breaking Bad, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, we've had a good discussion about that series, and
love Bryan Cranston.
Working in the presence of a brilliant actor like that was absolutely amazing. And you know, it was a small part, but I got to spend the day interacting with him in the scene, and it's something I'll never forget. You know, it's one of those, I don't get starstruck too often, and I've met a lot of, you know, actors, but I was pretty starstruck around that guy, and he's a really down-to-earth guy, funny and charismatic. But you know, I want to veer off of where the acting in my community has led me, and my sobriety is I just mentioned how I was starstruck, and I shared this with you the other day. I was at a Mardi Gras parade this past year.
Yeah, tell that.
And the sheriff of my parish, who's been the sheriff for over 20-something years, you know, it chokes me up because I was such a piece of shit, man. And he came up to me and told me how proud he was of me. And
this is an older guy that's known you. This guy's known you like your whole life type of thing, right?
Oh yeah, and he was like he was a state trooper, and he was a state policeman for Louisiana. He became our sheriff, and he just, the accolades that he gave me in that moment, and you know, I was kind of a fanboy.
What did he say, man? What did he say? Tell us what he said.
He just said, man, he said, I'm watching you and you're doing amazing things. And you know, our community is so lucky to have someone like you in our community. And, you know, and to be a guy 6 years ago who wasn't allowed in certain bars. I mean, how the fuck you get kicked out of a bar, bro?
Yeah.
like you know, how bad you gotta be to not be in a bar. You know, so it's been a trip, man. It's a form of respect that I'm not used to getting, and I'm very humble about it all, because I still see myself as just an oil field worker, and you know, and that's what I am. Because obviously I can't act full with the acting thing, you know, like, you know, shave your beard, you know, you'll get more work, and you know, you can go for commercials, which is pays really well, and your range will be so much more. And I'm pretty content being the guy with a beard and tattoos. You know, it's who I am. I shared this with you.
Like I told you though, man, is that you're not, when somebody's looking at something or they're describing you, I can imagine like on set or somebody looking through material or they're casting or whatever, you're not the guy with a beard. You're the guy with the beard. Oh yeah, who is that? Yeah, he's that bearded guy, man. So plus, dude, your pictures on your Instagram, I don't know if that's that same photographer or whatever, but you got this unique face, kill pictures, and the beard and whatnot. It's like just pops, man, just pops. So I would say no, you got to keep the beard, man.
I agree with you on the you know, keeping it. You know, I've had different actors that are like, you know, if that's you, man, you keep it you. You know, and when I got sober, they wanted me to grow a plant, and I was like, I'm gonna grow a beard, and this beard has taken me to Miami, Los Angeles, Puerto Rico, and you know, like tons of charity events and beard competitions where I can actually give back to different communities.
Let's talk about the bearded villains though too, man, because I want to make sure that I get in what is the bearded villains, because now we're actually fully into the beard. So tell us about bearded villains. What is that? How did it start? How are you involved in it? Did you start? What is it? What's bearded villains about, man?
So the bearded villain is actually a brotherhood of men who doesn't discriminate against religion, sexuality, or race. It's
just non-bearded. Just non-bearded guys. Only
just not. We don't like bash non-bearded guys, but we do encourage them to do it. And it's, you know, it's a thing that started out in 2014 out in California, and I'm friends with the guy who started the president, and he's a great guy, and I don't think he really realized what he was creating, because now we had close to 5,000 members around the world and chapters close to 200 all around the world. And then we have them in Saudi Arabia, we have them in Africa, we have them in Australia, we have them in France, anywhere, we have the States. I'm lucky. And so this was created in 2014. And in 2016, I was at a point in my recovery where I wanted to venture out and not just be around recovery.
Yeah.
Right. So I did my first beard competition. It was a hideous looking beard. I had just started growing it. It was scraggly, it looked like a wire brush. And I did it for my bachelor party, actually. And I did my first beard competition. And while I was there, I met someone from the Louisiana chapter. And at that time, the chapter had like maybe under 20 people. It was just starting to get structured, and their charity was just starting to pick up. And I spoke to someone, and they referred me to someone. And fast forward like 2 years later, we've got the chapter built up to 60-something guys. We have the biggest chapter in the United States. We're the 6th largest chapter in the world here in Louisiana. And I've held every leadership position possible in the chapter.
What does it do? What is it about, man? What do you guys do? It's not like...
So we have big meets where we get together, and first it's about, brotherhood, and it's about hanging out and being there for each other, to support each other if you're going through anything in life. And when I first got in it, sobriety wasn't a big thing. It was very taboo, and the president and I was in Los Angeles in August, I was very open when I realized, because a lot of guys drink, and guys would not attend events because there was alcohol there, because they had problems with drinking, and it's amazing how many people have come out and gotten sober, so we basically a big support group for each other, but we also do charity work. We also do things for our community, and we try, like Miami had this big competition with their chapter, and guys, and we raised money and went to a local orphanage there, and so our main thing is support and brotherhood, and it's a cool place where the world should be more like this. Religion and sexuality and politics is never discussed, and it's respected, but it's short-lived. So it's kind of cool to live in that kind of world, of the bearded villains, where we all really coexist and have a huge amount of respect for each other and our families, because it's a very family-oriented club. We have these big events where kids come and our wives, and what bearded villains is, man. And if someone hears this and they're interested in it, they're welcome to go to at Bearded Villains and send a message, or they're welcome to find their state chapter and reach out to them, and the process will get started. And the beard just has to be 4 centimeters long, and
cool, man.
That's what we do. We give back, and give back not only to ourselves but to the community.
I love it. So let me ask you let me pepper you with a couple of questions here as we kind of start coming in for landing, man. Who are you influenced by the most? Are you a reader? Do you like to read books? Like who influences you the most when you think about modeling yourself, or who do you think is the biggest impact? Anybody?
I get asked that question a lot, right?
I thought it was a question. I'm sorry. I thought I was being clever coming up with a
It's a crazy question, and the crazy thing is I can never answer it. I never really looked up to a person. I never really, if we're talking about looking up for motivation and to be motivated by a person, a role model, I never had anyone like that in my life. And even in sobriety,
who do you like being around? Like, other than your wife or your kids, who do you like being around?
Who I love being around.
Yeah.
Who I love being around. So, like, who brings out, man, it's different all the time. Like, when you and I got off the phone the other day, like, you motivated me. When Donna and I had a conversation, she motivated me. So I think it's constantly interchanging for me. And I always keep that open, because I never want to stick to one person, because we're all flawed, right? I can't just follow somebody or love to be around just one person. If I would do that, I would never learn. Change for me. It's different people. In 1 week it might be when I work with Brian Cranston. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
In acting, it's him. In recovery, it's people like I meet, like Donna. So it's all different aspects of my life. It was never one person, but I will say this: I always wanted the courage and strength my father had. When my mother raised 2 children on his own, because he wasn't a wealthy man, and I knew that was a hard task. And you hear a lot about single moms, and I respect any single parent, whether it be a mom or father. But I seen him struggle and hold his sobriety down, raising 2 boys as a plumber's helper, digging ditches, and literally digging ditches. And he's an old hippie, and I love him, but I don't think it was ever one person. I think it's constantly entering, and I get something from everyone.
Yeah, nice, man. Are you a reader? Do you like to read?
Personally, my biggest hero. Do enjoy reading. I don't read I read a lot. I was a big fan of the Beat generation, man. Kerouac and Burroughs and Ginsberg. So when I got to reading like that, as far as inspirational stuff, like I've read. I think it was A New Pair of Glasses. That was a great book, and then Donna's book's amazing. I like real shit.
Yeah.
So I read that, but I like to hear a person's story. It tells me a lot about them, and who they are.
Yeah.
But I read mostly scripts.
So what are you going to do now, man? What's going to happen? So you said one of the things I thought was interesting is you said that you're not going to be, when we talked on the phone and now, you said that you're not going to do full-time acting. You didn't think, like, I don't know. And I also am a believer that, life is not something that's poured in concrete, man. It can change, but like,
right.
What's up with that? Why not that? Is it stability, family, insurance? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's my passion and I love doing it. But, when I decided to be a person of society, a sober person of society, is accountability. And I have 2 children to take care of, and they're 14 and they're about to come up on 14 and 16, and the company I work for has great benefits, and I'm really lucky that they do allow me time, if my work's done, to go out and do these acting gigs. But right now, I'm just another human being on this planet that is trying to get through this mess that we're in, and productions are going to be starting back up in New Orleans, and we'll see where the road leads me. I got movies coming out. I got a film festival that I'll actually be a screener on. I have movies that I have a series.
Yeah, you got a series on Amazon, right?
On Amazon. Yeah. That we haven't started production on yet that I have a part in. Yeah, it's the waiting to start actually filming the pilot. It's already turned in on IMDb, and right before we were getting ready to leave the film, right before this pandemic started. In fact, I got an email from production, that evening, and that it was postponed for this COVID purposes. And so now we're on standby. I actually heard from production the other day. We're still going strong. We're still on. We're just kind of waiting till these other productions here in the city start coming out. Of course, they're gonna have regulations to it, But like you said, right now I'm an oil field worker, and I just so happen to be an actor when I can, when I have the opportunity to act. I've been fortunate to have these opportunities. Everybody has a great story. By none or far, mine's is special. I was just really blessed to have opportunities, and I said this to you the other day, and it's something I firmly believe. These opportunities did present themselves, but I busted my ass to get them, right? I busted my ass in sobriety. I busted my ass as being a better human being. And when it came to studying acting and networking and doing what I had to do, we have this choice when we wake up in the morning to be a victim or to be our own fucking hero.
Right, man.
Right? And I wake up every day with that choice, because I get this really cool thing now that I understand called freedom of choice and free will, and I have that decision in the morning when I wake up. It is everything that happened to me, ancestral trauma or trauma that I caused to myself or in my life, the mess, the destruction, it am I going to be a victim because of this? I'm going to be my own fucking hero and use this to do great things.
Love that.
So,
love that.
Yeah, and so I don't know what's next, and I'm okay with not knowing what's next, right? Because if I know what's next, then what fun is that?
Yeah, man. And I think that's a great. I think that's a great kind of crescendo to everything too. Is one of my big beliefs about life is, and I heard it somebody. It was in a seminar sometime a few years ago, and they were saying, I love stories. I love movies. I love serials on TV. I love books. I just love stories. And this guy was breaking down all of the elements of the story. Little known person becomes kind of reluctant hero. Setback. All hope is lost. And he broke down all this kind of stuff. And he said, you got to understand that when shit goes bad in your life, that's not the story of your life, man. That's not your fucking life story. That's a plot twist. And if you had a story where it started and just everything was just freaking straight up and it was, it's boring, man. And so my thought all the time is like, if you can project that everything's going to turn out okay or better than you expected, then you can kind of look around, especially I think it involves faith. I do. That there's something else bigger. Yeah, something else bigger than us, man. And then you can kind of sit back and go like, fuck, what's going to happen next, man? Like, I don't know. Could be good, could be bad. But so.
I accept that challenge. I accept this shit, man. I do, because I want to fail, and I want to feel better, and I'll feel better, and that's the only way I'm gonna grow. So I embrace the shit. I accept it, because this world's not perfect. The saying, nothing in God's world happens by mistake. No, but in man's world, there's a lot of shit that happens, right? And it's gonna happen, and it's how we perceive it, and we have that choice to be a victim of it or to be our own fucking hero of it.
Well, I think that we're going to have a lot of choices coming up. I think that we live in a different world right now. I think that there is going to be some kind of after. I'm hopeful that that after is going to have many elements that are going to be better than it was before. And my prayer, my hope is that things come together, better than ever, man. I don't know.
And my prayer and my hope is that too.
Yeah, good deal. Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to land the plane there, man. I just want to thank you for your time. I know that you're kind of on a little holiday getaway with the wife. You're going to meet some people. I'm envious that you're actually going to collaborate with other, get together with other bearded villains and humans. So I'm dying for that kind of interaction. But I thank you for carving out a little bit of niche of time, man. It's been cool to get to know you. I'm looking forward to continuing to develop a relationship and to watching where your career goes. As I like to say to a lot of the guests that I have the pleasure of interviewing, if we live near each other, we'll be barbecuing together, man.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you so much. I'm humbled and honored, and I appreciate you, giving me your time.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. This has been another.
And we have a conversation to finish. Conversation to finish on the phone. I said you and I have a conversation to finish on the phone. We'll get to that.
We're gonna have more than one. I'm pretty sure. We're gonna be friends. I'm pretty sure. As I said in my text message, we're gonna get along really well. So thank you very much. Hang on one second. This is another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine and recoverytodaymagazine.com. In 1 sec, I'll stop the recording.